A very good afternoon, assalamu alaikum and daja hao to everyone. Madam Pang, welcome. Madam Sherry Rahman, Honorable Fakhr Imam Saab, Senator Mushahid Hussain, Ambassador Arif Kamal, Ambassador Syed Hassan Javed, and other dignitaries, warm welcome from different time zones, Europe, China, South Asia. I hope I'm audible to everyone. If I'm not,
yes,
just raise your hand, because I'm in a place where the Wi-Fi may be a little volatile.
Yes, you are audible.
Excellent. The Golden Gate Bridge is looking beautiful, by the way. So we will just begin. We are just waiting for Fakhr Imam Saab to join as well. And then we'll just kick off the proceedings.
जी, अस्सलाम वालेकुम मुस्तफा साहब।
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum.
जी, how are you, जी?
Fine,
Very well,
thank you.
very well. Thank you for joining. So we'll start today's conference, which is on the 6th Plenum of the 19th Central Committee of the Communist Party of China, which was held about 10 days ago. And as we know, this is the third most historical resolution that has come out of the Central Committee. And the past two were under the auspices of the past two leaders of Chairman Mao and Deng Xiaoping. And this resolution has a lot of historical significance and also significance for the future. And also in terms of China's internal policies, of their plans on achieving the two centenary goals. The first one, which has already been achieved, of achieving a moderately prosperous society. And of course, the second centenary goal, which is aimed for 2049. And that is a major goal of the Communist Party of China that the founders of the CPC had vowed to achieve. So these are two centenary goals. And the first one was achieved in December of 2020, where poverty was eradicated in absolute terms. And the second centenary goal is also mentioned in this resolution, and also the Belt and Road Initiative of sharing the development and the dividends of the reform and opening up with the rest of the world is also mentioned. And when we talk about the Belt and Road Initiative, as we know, it also refers to the flagship project of the Belt and Road Initiative, which is the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, of which Pakistan is part and parcel. And after that, of course, the leadership of Xi Jinping is reinforced in this resolution. There's a lot else which has also been mentioned. So we are today going to be talking about this and interpreting this, what it not only means for China, but also for the world, for Pakistan. And without much further ado, we have a great set of speakers and audience. And we are very grateful to everyone for joining. And without much further ado, I'd like to ask Fakhr Imam Saab to give his remarks. Thank you. Kindly unmute yourself, please, sir. You're muted.
Ji, can you hear me now?
Ji, we can.
Ji. Ji. Assalamu alaikum, honorable ladies and gentlemen. It's Honorable Senator Mushahid Hussain Saab, Honorable Senator Sherry Rahman Sahiba, the Honorable Ambassador Nang Rong, the Mustafa Saab, Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. I would like to take this opportunity to thank and express my gratitude to the Pakistan-China Institute for organizing this virtual event. The important theme of the 6th Plenum of the 18th Central Committee of the Communist Party of China. It's indeed a pleasure, a privilege, and an honor to speak on this important theme and to share my views on what it means for China, the world, and in particular for us in Pakistan in this post-pandemic world order. The organizers deserve special gratitude for their chance of a theme which signifies a momentous milestone in shaping the domestic polity of China and informing and educating the audience of its great significance. I would also avail of this opportunity to congratulate the Chinese leadership and people for the centenary of the founding of the Communist Party of China. The party has steered through difficult times and led to a great miraculous development of how China has emerged as a second superpower and transformed in just 4 decades from a developing agrarian economy to a strategic economic powerhouse today, achieving the unprecedented feat of lifting 700 to 800 million Chinese people out of poverty. Honorable ladies and gentlemen, the 6th Plenum of the Central Committee of the CPC concluded in Beijing on the 11th of November 2021. The major highlights of the plenum reviewing 100 years history of the party and the role of the previous leaders, namely Mao Zedong, Deng Xiaoping, and now President Xi Jinping. The communique lauds the party's leadership for liberating China from the imperialists and its meteoric rise as the global economic powerhouse. Decisive triumph against COVID-19 pandemic and for achieving the first centenary goal of becoming a moderately prosperous society in 2020. The communique reiterated CPC's resolve to continue making strides and achieving the second centenary goal of the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation. Honorable ladies and gentlemen, commenting upon the international political landscape, the communique underscores the external environment which has grown increasingly complex over the past year due to unprecedented global changes and the coronavirus pandemic. However, China's international appeal, its influence, and its power have also increased under the current leadership. It is important to note that the resolutions carrying such symbolism were only issued twice in the last 100 years, as Mustafa said, of CPC's history. First such resolution came out in 1945 by Chairman Mao at that time. Similarly, the sixth plenum, which was held in 1981 and actually transformed China through its modernization under the leadership of Deng Xiaoping, completely transformed the then developing China into a superpower today. The third resolution of the CPC's history, adopted this year, is an overwhelming vote of confidence in President Xi's leadership, and its importance is in continued development of China and the realization of international initiatives like the Belt and Road Initiative, and for Pakistan, the CPEC. Honorable ladies and gentlemen, China is now facing, as we see, major challenges in the geostrategic, geopolitical world order, where its own peaceful, stellar rise has heightened insecurities amongst some quarters. As China's all-weather strategic cooperative partner, Pakistan takes immense pride in China's prosperity and appreciates its role in promoting the interests of the developing world. Pakistan's socio-economic development has immensely benefited from the CPEC, the transformational flagship project of the BRI. The first phase of CPEC has almost been completed, and it has overcome much of the energy shortages that Pakistan faced. And now we are positioning ourselves for the second phase of the CPEC. COVID-19 pandemic impacted the world in many ways. The lockdowns had forced economic recession upon impoverished regions and great suffering by citizens across the world. Pakistan's preparedness and resilience and the government's policies under Honorable Imran Khan helped shield it from the huge loss to lives and economy compared to many other countries. In fact, the London Economist has praised Pakistan as being perhaps stellar in facing the COVID-19. Pakistan's prevention efforts received boost due to many of the Chinese interventions, assistance of protective equipment and vaccines. Our two countries are ready to work together to navigate challenges in the post-COVID-19 recovery. Honorable ladies and gentlemen, post-COVID economic recovery cannot be fully achieved without international cooperation. The developing world suffers from confrontation and conflict and cannot afford unraveling of the multilateral system built up so patiently around the principles of the United Nations since 1945. What is required is leadership, as President Xi and earlier Deng Xiaoping, Mao Zedong, China did, to confront challenges like hunger, climate change, poverty, and underdevelopment by joining hands in a cooperative effort. China, now enshrined in the resolution of the sixth plenum, champions international cooperation and reaffirms the promise that it does not seek hegemony, favors development of a multipolar world, and democratization of global relations to achieve common prosperity. Pakistan shares China's aspirations of a harmonious world order based on principle of mutual respect, equality, and opportunity for development. We will continue working with all nations of the world to achieve better living standards for the people of Pakistan and raise the quality of our people, and hence be a peaceful partner in the world community. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to express my gratitude to all and for allowing me to express my views at this particular conference. Thank you indeed for your indulgence. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your wide-ranging remarks from the CPC's historical resolution to the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor and to the time-tested bilateral partnership between Pakistan and China. To also learn a little bit more about the nuances of this resolution and the subtle undertones of this resolution, like to invite Madam Peng Shui, the Deputy Chief of Mission of the People's Republic of China, to deliver her remarks.
Thank you, Mustafa. I also thank for the Honorable Minister for his very thoughtful remarks. His Excellency Mr. Moshahid Hossain Sayed, Chairman of Senate Defense Committee and the Pakistan-China Institute. His Excellency Mr. Syed Fahad Imam, Minister of National Food Security and Research. His Excellency Mr. Qasim Suri, Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly of Pakistan. Her Excellency Madam Sharil Rahman, Parliamentary Leader of the Pakistan People's Party. And also our old friend, Mr. Mustafa, Executive Director of Pakistan-China Institute. Ladies and gentlemen, Salam Alaikum and very good evening. I am honored to attend today's online seminar of the 6th plenary session of the 19th Central Committee of the Communist Party of China, organized by the Pakistan-China Institute. And first of all, I would like to thank the Institute for organizing this event and all the participants for supporting China's development and our bilateral friendship. The 6th plenary session of the 19th Central Committee of CPC, which was concluded recently, is a milestone for the CPC. And the meeting has summarizes major achievements and the experience of the CPC's 100-year glorious history. Today, we get together to share our views on the spirit of the conference, which is very conducive for interpreting the secrets of China's rapid development, understanding the experience of the CPC in governance, and exploring ways to strengthen the all-round cooperation between China and Pakistan. I would like to share some of my readings from the conference. This plenary session is an important meeting held at a very important historical juncture when celebrating the 100th year of the founding of the CPC and achieving the 2 centenary goals. Its significant outcome was the adoption of the resolution of the Central Committee of the CPC on the party's major achievements and historical experiences in a century of struggle. As all our friends said, this is the 3rd resolution issued in the history of CPC in a century. It will further unify the whole party's thinking, will, and action. By the time of its founding, the CPC had only 50 party members. Now it has become the world's largest ruling party with global influence of 95 million members. Under the leadership of the CPC, China has gone through historical changes, from being divided and scattered of national unity to being overall well-off and achieving prosperity, from being passively beaten and bullied to being independent and self-confident. China has completed the industrialization process in just a few decades, creating the miracle of rapid economic development in line with the long-term social stability. The success of the Chinese Communist Party is obvious to all. Looking back on the glorious history, the plenary session summed up 10 historical experiences of the CPC. Due to the time constraint, I would like to share some of them. The first is to uphold the party's leadership and ensure the party's unity and centralization. The CPC is the core force of the cause of socialism with Chinese characteristics. China has 56 ethnic groups and 1.4 billion people. If the Central Committee of the CPC does not have a core, and the whole party does not have a core, it is easy to break up and nothing can be done. The CPC established Comrade Xi Jinping as the core of the party's Central Committee and the core position of the whole party, and established the guiding position of Xi Jinping's thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era. By doing so, the CPC will have the anchor, the Chinese people will have the backbone, and the CPC, as well as the Chinese people, will be more united towards the great regeneration of the Chinese nation. The second is to stick to a correct development path that suits the national conditions of the country. Our direction determines our path, and the path determines the future. Through innumerable hardships and great sacrifices over 100 years, the CPC has led the people of the whole country and embarked on the right path to realize national regeneration, to make our country prosperous and strong, and to bring happiness to the people. This is the path of socialism with Chinese characteristics. This path is based on China's national conditions and in line with China's economic and social development. It is a broad path to create a better life for the people under the choice of the people. The third is to adhere to people-centered approach and let the people be the masters of the country, proceeding from China's conditions and to solve the difficulties facing the people. The CPC is people-centered, aiming to solve the difficulties of the people's actual lives, and established a democracy in China that conforms to China's reality. It is a whole process people's democracy, including electoral democracy, consultative democracy, social democracy, primary level democracies, citizen democracy, and all other necessary elements of democratic politics. It covers elections, consultation, decision-making, management, supervision, and all other relevant fields of the democratic process. It is not only based on a complete set of institutional procedures, but also with full participation and implementation. It is a democracy in terms of process and outcome. It achieves the integration of procedural and substantive democracy, direct and indirect democracy. It is people's democracy and at the same time represents the will of the state. It is highly democratic in terms of both quantity and quality, and is sincerely welcomed by the people. Only you can tell if the shoes fit, whether a country is democratic or not. It can only be judged by the people of the country. The fourth is to maintain a global vision and strive to build a community of shared future for mankind. The CPC has been seeking not only happiness for the Chinese people, but also progress of mankind and the common good for the world. Facing the question of the time as what has happened to the world and how should we respond, President Xi Jinping puts forth the important vision of building a community of shared future for mankind. Take the COVID-19 pandemic, for example. Ever since it broke out worldwide, China has actively conducting international cooperation in fighting the pandemic and started the global humanitarian assistance to the largest degree. We provide the material aid, medical support, vaccine supply to many countries, in particular developing countries, including Pakistan. Actions have proved that China is a responsible major country that honor its commitment. Ladies, gentlemen, and dear friends, China and Pakistan enjoy a unique all-weather strategic cooperative partnership. Ever since the establishment of diplomatic relations 70 years ago, we have been sincere to each other and sharing will and woe together, regardless the changes of international situation. History has proved that China and Pakistan are ironclad brothers that fully trust each other. China supports Pakistan to explore the development approach suitable to its own situation and is willing to share with Pakistan CPC's governance experiences and the new opportunity of China's high-quality development. As the CPC solemnly celebrated its centenary, leaders of major parties in Pakistan all have sent congratulatory letters to our CPC's Secretary General, Xi Jinping. They appraised the achievement made by the CPC in areas such as economic development, poverty alleviation, and fighting the pandemic. They also expressed their sincere wishes to strengthen exchanges and cooperation with the CPC and bilateral ties with China. As President Xi Jinping said during the phone call with Prime Minister Imran Khan this October, facing the fundamental changes unseen in a century in the world, China and Pakistan should stand more firmly together and strengthen strategic mutual trust so as to promote the high-quality development of CPC, broaden all-round cooperation in every field, and further enrich the connotation of our all-weather strategic cooperative partnership. With these words, I wish today's seminar a great success. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Pang, for that very insightful speech and what the CPC has achieved after reform and opening up and what it has delivered to the people of China and how the CPC has actually become the biggest political party in the world with over 90 million members and delivered the basic goods of a better life, the right to a better life, and food, shelter, and a substantial middle class for China, which is huge, not to mention eradicating poverty. Now I would like to invite Madam Senator Sherry Rahman, who has chaired the CPEC Committee of the Senate. She has been the PPP's representative at the Joint Consultative Mechanisms, which have been hosted in Beijing by the International Department of the Central Committee, and also the JCM, which was virtually held, which we had organized. And the Pakistan People's Party has also had a very important role in fostering the relationship with China. Of course, and Senator Sherry Rahman is going to speak about the 6th Plenum of the 19th Central Committee and globalization with the context of BRI. Over to you, Senator Sherry Rahman.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon and good evening and good morning to all friends and members of this very important seminar. First of all, thank you to the Pak China Institute for organizing this critical convening at a time when the world is looking towards not just China, but its development efforts, its economic leadership, and its pivotal strategic role in the world, especially with the Belt and Road Initiative. So with those words, I'd like to first salute everybody here and congratulate all of you for coming together Madam Peng at the Chinese Embassy, and I assume that Ambassador Nomrong is at some point listening. Senator Mushahid Hussain for organizing this and always being committed to this ironclad friendship in ways that I don't think anybody else quite is, at least in our parliament. Mr. Ambassador Arif Kamal, Mustafa Sayed for hosting us, and many other friends whom I see present, and of course, Honorable Fakhr Imam, who may or may not be listening. So without much ado, I'd just like to first say congratulations from Pakistan. And as chair of the Foreign Relations Committee of the Senate, I would like to say one thing that unites all political parties in Pakistan, and that is, who are divided on everything else, and that is a close friendship, a consistent friendship, and a stable developing paradigm of working relations with the People's Republic of China, which of course means the Chinese Communist Party. Now, on the important subject of the 6th Plenum of the 19th Central Committee, which has passed its 3rd resolution in a century and is a very important document, will be studied by scholars for days and years to come. I think a few words of congratulations, as well as Pakistan's ideas and lessons to be learned, can be mentioned here. We do see your 2nd centenary goals, and we appreciate President Xi, his whole leadership on the socialism with Chinese characteristics. The entire world, including the Pakistan People's Party, whom I represent, has always looked upon the CPC as a very important enabler of redistributive justice, of not just socialism with Chinese characteristics, but a vehicle that has been able to play a transformative role in a society that has come a very long way in the world and within its own country as well to transform futures. It is now playing a leadership role in the world in guiding and I think leading countries and other political parties to organize, to effectively institutionalize and build their own capacities for developing our own societies, because without political parties such as the CPC, which are inherently strong and rooted in, as you say, people-centered approaches and rooted in society, those are the ones that will be able to mobilize people in the changes and the huge meta trends and changes that we see coming up in the world. And it is important also from the People's Party to note that President Zardari and Chairman Bilawal Bhutto Zardari also send their congratulations and have also communicated them in writing to the Secretary General of the CPC, who's also President Xi, as old friends of the Communist Party. We have also led many delegations. I have led many myself to many cities and hinterlands of China, thanks to the embassy as well as the Chinese Communist Party. And we have been able to build on I would say 3 generations worth of ties that have weathered the test of time, that have weathered many ups and downs, and we hope will continue to take us into the future, whether we face perils or we face promise. It is very important also to the Pakistan People's Party to remember that Chairman Mao was one of the greatest leaders that inspired not just the manifesto, but also the ideas and the ideology of the People's Party, and that he unified all of China under a single motto of socialism, and that socialism with Chinese principles continues to guide and shape and of course lead the national rejuvenation you talk about in your document and resolution. So the People's Party has, of course, would always like to remember and build on this relationship, which was initially actually laid, the foundations were laid by our own chairman, Shahid Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, who was the last international leader to see Chairman Mao before his passing. And then the relationship was curated very ably and through the years by his iconic daughter, the twice elected Prime Minister of Pakistan and of the Muslim world, the woman, Mohtharma Shahid Benazir Bhutto, who made several visits to China. And then after that, President Zardari, who made more than, I think, 10 to 11 visits to China during his presidential term and laid the foundations of the very important CPEC, which to us is the poster child of and the jewel in the crown of the all-important Belt and Road Initiative. By granting China access to Gwadar and stakes in Gwadar, we do understand that China will, in its momentum of development and globalization and leadership with redistributive justice and benefits to all, which is the plan and which seems to be the President Xi's ambition, China will be able to unite many countries and bring employment and development to many countries in its model of soft and economic power that it seeks to build on. So I think these are very important geopolitical and geoeconomic developments to take note of, in which China is not seeking a zero-sum game on an arena, especially in the Indo-Pacific, as it intensifies, competition is intensifying. And both the Chinese Communist Party and the People's Republic are not seeking, to our minds, any kind of zero-sum game which leads to conflict, but I think a peaceful and constructive development that is mobilized and energized and powered by a development model that we see within China as well. And with those words, I would like to also recognize that we look with great interest, and I think the world looks with great interest at how the People's Republic of China, under the leadership of the CPC, has actually been able to not just accumulate 95 million members, but has also, by 2021, achieved a very important multilateral goal, a United Nations 2030 goal of eradicating poverty by lifting over 750 million people from below the poverty line, and in a matter of only 4 decades, which is unprecedented in the annals of human history. So I think this is something that not just Asian economies, but obviously Pakistan, as well as many other countries who are going through difficult economic times and challenges, particularly of employment and lowered productive capacities, both in manufacturing and agriculture, after we have seen several waves of the pandemic hit the world, and specifically how China also dealt with the pandemic, and by not just battling it at home, but also and overcoming it in an exemplary fashion, but also leading the world in many countries in developing some level of vaccine equity, which is one of the problems that we continue to face all over the world. And at this point, I want to take the opportunity to also say that I would like to thank the CPC for always reaching out in difficult times directly to political parties, including the People's Party. And I know that the CPC was also conducting exemplary public diplomacy and bilateral diplomacy with all the political parties in Pakistan, and has been donating not just vaccines, but also masks in the initial, face masks in the initial phase of the pandemic, when the world was beset with panic and shortages, and governments were still considering ways of how to deal with such a disruptive, kind of disease, which the world is still trying to understand with as it comes through its various mutations. We do wish the People's Republic and the CPC all the best wishes in meeting further challenges in both facing the pandemic, but also in how it has led the world and has stood up to the plate on, to my mind and to all our minds, one of the most important trends of the new century, of the 21st century, and shown leadership in addressing serious concerns of climate change and stress to the whole planet, to the Asian continent, and of course the whole world. Because as you know, like the pandemic, this is a meta trend to my mind. Climate change knows no borders, like cybersecurity and other risks to the world. And the 21st century, China has become a world leader and has been addressing issues of fossil fuel reduction and reducing carbon footprints, as well as sequestering carbon in transformative ways, including agricultural techniques and new methods of reducing water use. These are very important methods, and these are very important innovations in society for people to invest in, and for particularly Pakistan to study, as we are one of the most water stressed and climate traumatized countries, climate vulnerable countries in the world. We are now the 5th most vulnerable country in the world to the traumas and the vicissitudes of climate stress. So, ladies and gentlemen, looking at this unpredictable world with new and mutating challenges appearing on the horizon, black swan events appearing any day to challenge large populations with young demographic bent, with not enough jobs in the market. For countries like us, China's model of redistributive justice, of changing and transforming its own society through lifting so many millions out of poverty is exemplary. And we also want to look at how China has reduced the urban-rural gap. It's been a strategic move throughout Chinese society and history to do this through migration, urbanizations. We have noted with interest how subsidies to farmers has changed lives, and how social protection programs have also brought lifted millions out of poverty. So social protection programs are again very important to Asian and other economies that are facing severe differences and hierarchies of poverty, and are facing income inequalities. And to the Pakistan People's Party, whose manifesto is rooted in flattening social pyramids and leading through social protection programs as one of the strategies for not just mitigating poverty, but easing lives and leading to some level of national rejuvenation and happiness, as you define it. Happiness is core to a country's national unity and sense of purpose, which we see constantly reflected in even your resolutions, particularly this resolution, which I recognize it is constantly addressing human problems as well as the real problems people face in society. So we welcome all the initiatives taken. And as far as the Belt and Road Initiative is concerned, I'd like to say that literally on behalf of all political parties in Pakistan, CPEC has not just been transformational, but it is seen as an extremely existential opportunity for Pakistan. It is a platform that can absolutely not just change the game, as we like to use that. It has become a cliche now in Pakistan, but it is underpinned by a sense of expectation, a sense of promise, and a hope in the future where another country is investing both with purpose and with some level of interest in how Pakistan is able to coordinate and its own provinces, its own programs, its own ministries, and create the kind of enabling environment where investment from China can actually realize the potential of the promises that are inherent in the whole CPEC projects. We stand by the promise and the opportunity exemplified in this very, very transformational platform, but it is entirely, we also recognize that it is entirely also up to the people of Pakistan, to the governments in Pakistan, to the institutions, to civil society, and to businesses to seek that investment, to guide it through Pakistan, to be able to coordinate it and to resolve any conflicts that may arise from a very large heterogeneous society with huge inequalities, seeking to bring in this level of investment. So I think while the CPC has been very generous in bringing political parties on one platform to listen to the problems, to what perhaps sometimes fishermen in Gwadar have a problem, various other cohorts and groups and classes have articulated problems and challenges that they see. We have noted that the CPC has been very careful in not just listening, but also modifying plans, modifying particular programs and even developments on the ground, which have proceeded with direct grant and aid development, such as beltways in Gwadar, so that the concerns of the people on the ground, especially indigenous people, are accommodated. So I think that has been a very important message to the people of Pakistan, that the CPC and the People's Republic is not just powering through its own model, but is also seeking to build it on the basis of Pakistani interests and Pakistani principles. Having, I think, spoken a little too long, I'm just going to end here with a vote of thanks again to the Institute for organizing this and for patiently making sure everyone is connected in times when so many mutations of the virus keep appearing and when travel becomes a challenge. But there is no substitute for meeting face to face. So we look forward to seeing all of you in one large room, whether in Beijing or in Islamabad. And thank you once again for organizing this. Thank you again from the People's Party and to the people of Pakistan. Pak Chin Dosti, Zindabad.
Thank you very much, Senator Shari Rahman Sahiba. A lot of great points, particularly how China is a uniting factor amongst the otherwise much divided political parties and body politic of Pakistan, and which strengthens the federation. And I think climate change is such an important point. And you're also the chair of the Climate Change Caucus. And China's leadership in climate change has been quite formidable. And I think it's worth noting that the politicization, weaponization of climate change that we are also seeing is something that doesn't serve the cause. And I just want to mention, and I was reading this earlier, that the United States twice left two very important multilateral agreements regarding climate change. One, the Kyoto Protocol, was left by George Bush. And the other one was the Paris Agreement, left by Trump for 5 and 3 years each, respectively, give or take. So, so that obviously absolved the United States during that time of whatever they did in terms of carbon footprint for the world. I think that now we will listen to Senator Mushaid Hussain, who will give a little bit of a context of what's happening in the world and in how that affects Pakistan-China relations, particularly the great big power competition that we are seeing in the region as well. So over to you, Senator Mushaid. You please unmute.
Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon and ni hao to our Chinese friends. And I'm in Rome, Italy for some meetings. So it's a pleasure to be talking virtually to all of you. And it's a pleasure to follow in the footsteps of my dear friend and colleague, Senator Shari Rahman Sahiba, who's an icon, not just in the women's movement, but also as a parliamentarian par excellence in the National Assembly and now the Senate of Pakistan, mashallah. So, and also we heard Mr. Fakhr Imam and Madam Peng welcome to you, and please convey our best wishes for the speedy health and recovery of Ambassador Nongrong, who I believe is down with some back problem. So we understand that fully. Thank you so much. I think this is a very, I'll just be very brief in my remarks because this is a very important context in which we have had some very good presentations, starting with the Senator Sherry Rahman, then Fakhr Imam Sahab, and then also Madam Peng, on this important 6th plenum of the 19th Central Committee of the Communist Party of China. And I think that when the 6th plenum document, which I read, which was issued on 11th November, what it refers to is that the once-in-a-century changes, which are bringing about a new type of international relations. I think that is the important thing, that we are living in a world which is being transformed, changed almost beyond recognition, not just in terms of the global shift in the balance of power from the West to the East, both economically and politically, but the changes that we have seen of late in our own region. And I'm referring to Afghanistan. And then we also are seeing that these changes are leading to some new kinds of, at one level, cooperation through the Belt and Road Initiative, which Senator Sherry Rahman mentioned also, and which Mr. Fakhr Imam mentioned also, which is more about cooperating, building a better world through regional connectivity, in which Pakistan is emerging as a hub between Central Asia, South Asia, China, and Iran and Afghanistan. But at the same time, we see another issue coming up, more conflictual, because there are some people in the West who have a mindset based on zero-sum game, based on bloc politics, based on perhaps even spawning a new kind of a Cold War. So I think that it's important that we should be on the right side of history. And in this regard, I personally would welcome the decision of the government of Pakistan not to attend the so-called democracy summit in the United States, because this was, frankly, it's more driven by ideology and a Cold War mentality, rather than a genuine desire or a commitment to promote, protect, and preserve democracy, which for us is a very important issue in Pakistan, because Pakistan is one of the few vibrant Muslim democracies, and we feel strongly about that. And we feel that democracy is one area on which there is a general consensus, not just in Pakistan, but also in the most of the Muslim world. So given that context, I think that this was a right decision taken by the Pakistan in this regard. I also want to mention 2 reports which have come out in the United States, which are very, very relevant. Regarding democracy, there was a report which was issued in July 2020 by the Ash Center of the Harvard University. And this Ash Center, ASH, this center had a detailed opinion survey of Chinese opinion from 2003 to 2020, over a period of time. It is the most comprehensive survey of Chinese public opinion. And this was done by the top American university, Harvard University. And that said that the popularity rating of the Communist Party of China and the Chinese government is over 85%. Because what has been happening is that over this period also, and this is referring to the central government in Beijing, that China people have seen a transformation in their lives for the better under the leadership of the Communist Party. And already Senator Sherry, Mustafa also, and Fakhr Imam Sahab also mentioned how so many people have been lifted out of poverty in such a short span. And I think that is extremely important, that because if a system is able to deliver a better quality of life to people in their lifetime and the lifetime of their children and grandchildren, that is what I think governance and democratic accountability is all about. I think this is very important to understand. And that's why that when people try to weaponize democracy and use it against other countries, including sometimes Pakistan, sometimes China, sometimes Turkey, sometimes other Muslim countries also. I think we see the double standards which are there. And I would also say that the Chinese white paper, which was issued on democracy on 4th of December, is quite relevant also, because there are different paths to achieving the same goal of a democratic process in that regard. And the second report I'd like to mention was issued just 3 days ago by Harvard University. It is called on 7th December, The Great Tech Rivalry, China versus US. And I think that is the problem which is bothering some countries in the West. And I'd like to quote from that report, because that is very important, and it is on the website. I've already tweeted about this report. It's issued by Graham Allison, one of the leading professors of Harvard University, along with Eric Schmidt, who is the founder of Google. And according to this report on the tech issue, the technological issue between China and the US, and I quote from the report, China possesses the might, the talent, and the ambition to surpass the United States as the world's leader in artificial intelligence in the next decade. And this is the report. And the report adds, and I quote again, China has displaced the United States as the world's top high-tech manufacturer. And it lists 3 areas. Number 1, smartphones. China produced 1.5 billion smartphones in 2020. China manufactured 25 million automobiles in 2020. And China has produced 250 million computers in the year 2020. So these are the figures given by the Harvard University study. And they also say, and this is very important, and that is why the West is very irked, some people in the West, in the US, or even now, I can see that the so-called boycott has been initiated. It includes an all-white club of UK, Australia, Canada, and the US on the Winter Olympics, because they say that China is also leading in the foundational technologies which are going to determine the development of the 21st century. And what are those foundational technologies? Artificial intelligence, 5G, and they say 5G will be as relevant as important and as large as the economy of India for the next 15 years, and the spread of 5G. And China is leading in that, and you can see China is also benefiting from that. And then this quantum information sciences, semiconductors, biotech, and green energy. So all these foundational technologies for the 21st century, which are going to be extremely important in transforming the way we live, the way we think, the way we function, on that China has an edge and is leading, providing leadership. So I think that an Asian country, which 30 or 40 years ago was not even in the reckoning. In fact, at the end of the 20th century, there were projections about the 21st century. China was not even being talked about. And now you can see this is what is happening. So in this context, Pakistan feels that in this age of globalization, it is extremely important that countries cooperate. The issues are borderless, whether it's the coronavirus pandemic, and we thank China for their support to Pakistan at a very crucial moment. And they supported us, as Sherry Rahman Sahiba said, not just with face masks, not just with the personal protective equipment, not just with testing kits, not just with the ventilators, but more importantly, the supply of life-saving vaccines. Sinopharm, CanSino, Sinovac, which have been extremely important. And now we have other vaccines from the West also. We welcome those also, because it's vaccines have no religion and no nationality. It's all about humanity. And the other issue is climate change. I was recently in Glasgow for the COP26 meeting, and it was very heartening that President Xi Jinping had announced that China will no longer support any coal-fired manufacturing of coal plants outside China. So I think that's also China's commitment as part of its goal to have net zero by 2050. So we hope that this process will continue. And it is in this context that Pakistan is very clear. We have had a good relationship with the United States. We would like a good relationship also with the US, but not at the cost of any other relationship, because we are not into bloc politics. We are into a cooperative relationship, which is serving the core interests of not just Pakistan, but the core interests of other countries as well. So it is in that context that Pakistan took the right decision. We will not be part of any Cold War. And we feel that the United States also should review its relationships and also review its policies, especially after what has happened in the war on terror. And I'd just like to mention, before I conclude, one last thing about post 9/11 world. According to the Brown University study of the post 9/11 world, the US squandered or spent $6.4 trillion in the so-called war on terror after 9/11, fighting wars, whether it's Pakistan's former Fatah region or Afghanistan or Iraq or Syria or Libya or Somalia. At the same time, China, in the post-11 period, 9/11 period, invested $4 trillion in 3,000 different projects the world over. So I think that is the basic difference. And when we talk of the Chinese model, it's not just about poverty alleviation. It's not just about providing good governance. It's not just about providing people-centric development. I think it's also, China has shown that quality of leadership, the ability to learn from others, having course correction, which they did after the Cultural Revolution under Deng Xiaoping, and above all, having a peaceful foreign policy. I will conclude with an episode which was mentioned by President Jimmy Carter during April 2018, when he received a telephone call from President Trump. And President Trump said, "What do we do about China? China is moving ahead of us." And President Carter replied, and he was telling this to his congregation, the church in Georgia, that the difference is that the last 40 years, China has been at peace. China has not conquered any country, not invaded any country, not gone to war against any country, while the US has been consistently fighting wars. So that is the difference. And we are very proud of our relationship with China, and we feel that this is a mutually reinforcing relationship based on mutual benefit, mutually compatible interests, and common worldview and values in the region that we are located, where we want to play a role in preserving and promoting peace, security, and stability, whether it's Afghanistan or the Asian region or the international community. So I thank Mustafa and his team for putting this together. And also I look forward that the year 2022 will bring closer cooperation between China, and I wish success to China in hosting the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics. And we look forward to our participation in that important event. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your patience and for your time.
Thank you so much, Senator Mushahid. And I think these two very important studies, particularly of the Ash Center at Harvard and the other one which you've referenced, are very important evidence-based citations, which goes to show where China has reached and what the people of China actually think about the Chinese government. Also, I think the Conference on Democracy was definitely, I agree, a good decision, and something which was very obviously pointed towards and created for enhancing the China containment policy in the new Cold War. Before we go to the question answer session, we have a video message from the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, who was apologizing for not joining because he's traveling to Turkey as we speak. So we have a short speech from the Deputy Speaker, and then we will have a short question and our question and answer interactive session.
बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। मुअज़्ज़िज़ सामीन, ख़वातीन व हज़रात, अस्सलाम वालेकुम। मुझे आज इस मौके पे बहुत खुशी है कि चाइना और पाकिस्तान वो ममालिक जो दरीना जिनके आपस में ताल्लुकात हैं, एक अजीम दोस्त है पाकिस्तान का चाइना, और हर मुश्किल वक्त में चाइना पाकिस्तान के साथ खड़ा है और चाइना के साथ हमेशा पाकिस्तान ने उसका साथ दिया है हर मुश्किल में। मुझे आज ये भी बहुत खुशी है कि हमारा पाकिस्तान और चाइना का जो अजीम मंसूबा है सीपेक का, वो तेजी के साथ रवां दवा है और अब अपने जो है वो दूसरे मराइल में भी शामिल हो चुका है, जिसके अंदर ज़राअत का ताउन है, जिसके अंदर इक्तिसादी ताउन है, जिसके अंदर समाजी तरक्की और गुर्बत का खात्मा है, जिसके अंदर मैं समझता हूँ कि बिजली के जो मंसूबे हैं फेज 2 के अंदर उस पे काम शुरू है। और ये काम जो है वो सूबे जो चाइना के जो सूबे हैं और पाकिस्तान के सूबे, इनमें मैं समझता हूँ कि बाहमी राब्ता और ज्यादा होना चाहिए। हमारे जो बड़े शहर हैं चाइना के और पाकिस्तान के, उनके दरमियान में राब्ता होना चाहिए और इंसानों का जितना आपस में सूबाई सतह पर, शहरों की सतह पर राब्ता होगा, उतने ज्यादा हमारे मजबूत रवाबित होंगे। और मैं ये भी समझता हूँ कि हमें और आपको जो है वो बरादर सूबों का दर्जा एक दूसरे के सूबों को देना चाहिए। बहुत से ऐसे शहर हैं जो मुबासलत रखते हैं आपस के अंदर चाइना और पाकिस्तान के, तो उनको बरादर शहरों का दर्जा देना चाहिए। और इन रवाबत को बढ़ाने के लिए मैं समझता हूँ कि दफातर का होना बहुत ज्यादा जरूरी है एक दूसरे के सूबों में, और पार्लिमान के मेंबरान का एक दूसरे के साथ रवाबत बहुत ज्यादा जरूरी है। जो बरादर सूबे करार दिए जाएं, उनके आपस में जो सूबाई असम्बली के जो मेंबरान हैं, उनमें आपस में राब्ता होना चाहिए। और इस अजीम दोस्ती को जो पाकिस्तान और चाइना की दोस्ती है, इस दोस्ती को और मजबूत किया जा सकता है कि जब अवामी राब्ते आपस में बहुत ज्यादा नजदीक हों। और मैं समझता हूँ कि चाइना ने जिस तरह गुर्बत की लकीर से लोगों को तेजी से निकाला है, लोगों की इक्तिसादियात को बेहतर किया है, ये पूरी दुनिया के लिए एक मिसाल है। मैं चाइना के सदर शी जिनपिंग का भी सीपेक के हवाले से जो उनकी जाती दिलचस्पी है, और वजीर आजम इमरान खान साहब जो मैं समझता हूँ पूरी दुनिया में मिसाल देते हैं चाइना की, कि चाइना ने जिस तरह तरक्की की, इक्तिसाद ऊपर लेके आया, अमन लेके आया, तो पाकिस्तान और चाइना की हुकूमतें आपस में मिलकर इस खित्ते में गुर्बत का खात्मा कर सकती हैं, इस खित्ते में अमन लाने का किरदार अदा कर सकती हैं, और पूरी दुनिया में ये पैगाम दे सकती हैं पाकिस्तान और चाइना कि हम अमन मुल्क हैं, हम अदम तशद्दुद के खिलाफ हैं, हम एक्सट्रीमिज्म के खिलाफ हैं, और हम दुनिया में गुर्बत का खात्मा चाहते हैं और इंसानियत की तरक्की चाहते हैं। एक दफा फिर मैं आप तमाम का बहुत बहुत शुक्रगुजार हूँ कि आपने मुझे इस वर्चुअल फोरम पे मदऊ किया। बहुत शुक्रिया।
Thank you. I think the speech from the Deputy Speaker is very important because he represents Balochistan, and which is a very important province for the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, and particularly Quetta. And I think his speech echoes the sentiments of the people of Balochistan, which is host to the Gwadar port, where the Silk Road economic belt and the 21st century maritime Silk Road converge. I think that today's galaxy of speakers from different political parties, different perspectives from the left to the right, are all very clear on how Pakistan needs to move forward in terms of policy challenges and also opportunities, particularly vis-a-vis China. And it's very heartening to know that. We will proceed to a short question-answer session. And I would like to firstly invite Syed Zibir Moinuddin, who's a leading CEO of a telecom company and has been also working closely with China, to ask the first question.
Thank you, Mustafa. In fact, instead of I just wanted to make a comment regarding the insightful session that Senator Mushahid covered. And the comment regarding that session is two very important aspects that he referred to. And I just wanted to mention that both of these two very key small acronyms, AI and 5G, these both are force multipliers, and very few understand what impact this will have on the next millennium. But it's extremely important that we all understand it. And China clearly has taken the lead out of some of the Western countries on this, and it hasn't happened overnight. They've worked for it, they've planned for it. In 3G, they lost out because they planned ahead, and they recovered, and they brought their leadership back in 5G. So just wanted to make a comment on that. And thank you, Mushahid Saab, for your insightful content.
Thank you. Can I just respond to your comment, Zibir Saab? And I'm appreciating this comment because Mr. Zibir Mohiuddin is a person who has a very high level cooperation with European, particularly in Sweden, like Volvo and others. So he's aware of the modern world which is being changed. You see, what has happened is China's transition. Before that, China, they said, China was the world's biggest factory. Then they say China is the world's biggest civil engineer, construction. Then now it is coming to innovation. It's not just manufacturing. In fact, China, we are talking of China relocating most of the small and medium manufacturing places in other countries, including Pakistan, including Sri Lanka, including Philippines, Vietnam, when we talk of the special economic zones in Pakistan. So China is now focusing as part of a conscious policy of the Communist Party and President Xi on innovation and high quality technology, and 5G and AI are the wave of the future. And I mentioned, and this is mentioned in the report of the Harvard University on 7th December, that 5G in next 15 years will be as large as the economy of India in terms of the impact. So you can see the technology-driven economic transformation of the world that is bound to come around. So in that, quantum computing and so forth, these are all biotech, and green energy is also a very important field in that. So China is, all these foundational technologies, China has taken its step forward. And I think the basic problem, which I find, and I've studied in America, I've lived in the West also, I've seen the East also, is that they're surprised how an Asian country, which till recently was so poor and backward, has now risen to compete, and not just compete, but even move ahead than the Western counterparts. And that is the problem. Thank you very much for your comment.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would Ambassador Syed Hassan Javed, who's the head of the China China Study Center in NUST, would you like to comment, sir? Or ask a question? Okay, I think he's not tuned in. If you have any questions, you can please send it to me in the chat box, and we can call upon you.
Well, I just wanted to make a short comment. You see, it's a very interesting webinar, and I really congratulate Pakistan-China Institute for taking this initiative at this moment, especially in the view of this important meeting that was held last month. And you see, I would just like to say that, how China is becoming number one is actually the theme of my newly written book that I will be launching next month. It's called China as Number One. So you can imagine how am I really following it. You see, the last month's meeting came against a lot of success background. China, the success of two-cycle economy that you see, that China's exports and imports level, and the foreign direct investment, despite all this pandemic and all, and the pandemic success also in pandemic. So I would just say that, and look at the West at the moment. I have been like you, Mustafa, I've been the chairing and moderating the session of democracy and building a community of shared destiny, which was organized by China Academy of Social Sciences in the last 4 days, or last week actually, from December 4th to until today. So these are very interesting times, but also extraordinary times, but I would also say dangerous times, because the West seems to be, somebody, I heard him, a scholar from America, saying that the President Joe Biden has not given up on the policy of us and them, or either you are with us or against us, of President George W. Bush. So it's more of the same now. So in this type of a situation where you have the Cold War, the West and particularly the Americans hell bent on having a a new Cold War. So I think what has been said by the eminent speakers, we in Pakistan, we certainly we should be knowing where the contemporary era is headed to, and certainly the rise of China and the way China has progressed is a great confidence for us. But we must harness this rise of China for our own rise. So I just would like to give that brief comment.
Thank you, Ambassador Hassan Javed Saab. And yes, there was a very important conference actually, which you mentioned, which Chinese Academy of Social Sciences has hosted, and we participated in it as well. And it was a many day-long conference on democracy and shared human values. And congratulations to you for participating in it. And also we look forward to reading your book and to receiving a copy very soon.
Thank you.
I'd just like to make a comment that Ambassador Hassan Javed has been very consistent in educating public opinion about modern new China. And I think he is such an informed perspective because he speaks Chinese himself. He served in China, also in Asia and Singapore, other places. And so his book is something which I would be looking forward to reading, China as #1. And I would like to say that please also, those of you who are interested in reading about new books on China, there's a new very good book by a Singapore a specialist, whom you, Ambassador Hassan Javed, will know, Kishore Mehbubani, who was the ambassador of Singapore to the United Nations. And then this book, the title is Has China Won? Has China Won? W-O-N. He is already saying that. So it's very interesting, the literature which is coming out from Asian scholars. And I welcome Ambassador Hassan Javed's book, and I look forward to not just his launch, but also in reading it, inshallah.
It's very interesting that you mentioned Has China Won? It's right here. If you can see, it's with me. Has China Won?
Yes. It's
and
a very
good
highlighter.
There's a highlighter inside. And I think it's one of the best books
yes.
which I've read on China, and his analysis is just superb. So I totally agree with you there.
And I'd also like to mention those of you who want to, and there was a very good discussion last week, which I followed on the YouTube between Professor Kishore Mehbubani and 2 Western experts on China. And I think the way he argued the case, and with a lot of facts and logic, was that they talk of democracy, they talk of other things, and censorship. And he says, please, you forget censorship in the West, you talk about that. So he exposed the double standards with a lot of empirical evidence. And I think this is very important because we get it right. And that's why I quoted the 2 studies from the West. I'm not talking of sources in China or sources in Pakistan. We are saying, what is the West writing? And because this attempt to first, this is classical, you demonize somebody, then you damage their reputation, then you destabilize them. And this is what has been happening now as part of this new Cold War strategy against China. So we feel that the 21st century Asia cannot be now hostage to a Cold War mentality or a zero-sum game mentality and so forth. And this is why most Asian countries do not agree with this view. Most third world countries will not agree. And I would also say European countries also. Look at Hungary, look at Macron. He has said we will not boycott the Winter Olympics of Beijing. And look at Germany also. So you see this kind of policies which are narrow-based will not find resonance internationally and globally.
Thank you, Senator Mushaid. Omer Haroon, my friend from LUMS, from the China-Pakistan Management Initiative. I would like to call on him to give his comment and or question. Please unmute yourself, Omer sir.
Thank you, Mustafa sir, and thanks everyone at Pak China Institute for inviting. It's been a great learning experience over here over the past hour and a half or so. I've just got a question, a brief question. Perhaps Senator Mushaid Saab or others can chime in. One of the major reasons for successful implementation of policies in China has been a continuity and consistency in economic policies. And my question here is, is there a structure or is there a mechanism under CPEC umbrella where we can learn how to ensure consistency in economic policies? Because uncertainty is something that hurts a country's economic condition in the long run anyways. So have we developed some kind of a mechanism or a structure to somehow ensure consistency? That's a brief question.
That's a very relevant question, Omer Saab, and that is one of the key elements in the Chinese success story. The continuity of policies since the last, for example, since the period of reform and opening up of Deng Xiaoping since 1979. I think in a very interesting period, CPEC, you've given there, let's see it. CPEC spans 3 different kinds of governments of 3 different political parties. And I date CPEC also because under the People's Party, in March 2013, a very important decision was taken that when Gwadar was handed over to the COPHC, the China Overseas Port Holdings, from the Singapore Ports Authority. And CPEC, if CPEC is the centerpiece of the Belt and Road Initiative, Gwadar is the centerpiece of CPEC. And then the baton was picked up by the PMLN, and now PTI, which is a different political party, again, they have also said, we also support. So 3 major political parties, you've seen continuity on CPEC. So interestingly, China, as Shari Rahman Saiba said, has become a unifying factor among political parties. So CPEC also has become a factor of continuity and stability. And it's not that, okay, we love China. Yes, we love China, but it's also in our interests. And frankly, CPEC is the only game in town in terms of investment. When we talk of $25 billion, when we talk of 75,000 people getting jobs, when we talk of relocation of industry, when we talk of industrial expansion. So people understand that this is in the interest of Pakistan and its people. Hence, now you can see the CPEC authority being institutionalized, the Board of Investment having new leadership, and with the recent meeting of the Joint Cooperation Committee, JCC, I think CPEC has been revitalized and taken to a new form. And there was a reference made by Madam Peng about the conversation of President Xi Jinping with our Prime Minister. I think that is very important that both agreed that taking CPEC forward is one of the elements of Pakistan-China relations in the current epoch. So I would say that, yes, there have been humps, there have been ups and downs, but now I think the road is very clear when it comes to policy continuity on CPEC. And that is why the institutionalization of CPEC and taking it forward, and its revitalization is very much there on the cards. So I would say that, I don't say that on other areas, but at least in terms of Pakistan-China relations and in terms of CPEC, you can see the policy continuity. And I've talked of 3 different governments of 3 different political parties in the last 8 years. And that is a trajectory which is likely to be followed now. And also because China and Pakistan have compatible interests, we know what's happened in Afghanistan. China and Pakistan are cooperating very closely. Also, we know the situation vis-a-vis India and the broader region also. And this region, I think, requires regional cooperation, which is very, very important to take this region forward.
Madam Pang, would you like to comment?
Thank you for the question. I think the question is just to go to the point. So, and I fully agree with Senator Mushahid, what he elaborated about this. So, you know, we have a very unique all-weather strategic partnership. And I think that all the parties, all the people of Pakistan, they have a very good sentiments towards China, towards Chinese people. I think that's the basic foundation for our all-weather strategic partnership and for our cooperation in all the fields. Regarding CPEC, I think Senator Mushahid just gave us a very overview picture of the construction of the CPEC in the past 8 years. So I fully agree. And, you know, CPEC and also the BRI, it's for the whole country, for the whole people. It's not for any specific person or something, you know, and anyone else. So we hope that with CPEC, we can build a very solid foundation for the development of Pakistan and also for our further cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Mushahid and Madam Peng, for answering Dr. Umair Haroon's very pertinent question. Now we have the last question from Vivian, who's a reporter from the China Daily and has joined us from Beijing, China. Over to Vivian.
Invitation. Hello. Okay, thank you for the invitation. Yes, for the question opportunity. I really appreciate. So I'd like to ask one question today. So will Pakistan be able to balance the US-China relations, as US already has a big footprint in South Asia? Thank you.
Vivian, who is this question addressed towards? If you can please specify.
I think the senator and the ambassador.
Okay.
The senator. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian, for your question. Vivian, you should know that we have had this, we have been in this path before also. 50 years ago, in 1963 in Beijing, there was a boundary agreement signed between China and Pakistan. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, Chinese Foreign Minister Marshal Cheney, we signed the boundary agreement. And that settled the boundary issue between Pakistan and China. And that laid the foundation of the strategic partnership. At that time, Pakistan was part of the American bloc. The Soviet Union was supporting America against China. We befriended China because it was in our national interest. And despite the opposition of the US and the USSR, the Soviet Union, because we felt that our interests are paramount. And we have been proven right, that this was a right decision. And later on, the Americans asked us, please help us have a relationship with China. And we were the bridge between China and the United States. If you remember 50 years ago, Dr. Henry Kissinger, special assistant to Nixon on national security, he flew secretly from a plane in Islamabad, PIA plane, to Beijing on 8th of July, 1971. and the opening to China took place because of Pakistan. So we were the bridge between the US and China. Now in this current situation, we are very clear. It's about interest. The Pakistan-China relationship is not tactical. It's not transactional. It's not directed against any third country. It stands on its own because there are mutually compatible interests and there's win-win cooperation that China gains from relationship with China, with Pakistan. Pakistan gains from relationship with China. And also the region gains because Pakistan-China relations are a factor for regional stability also. What we are trying to do in Afghanistan, what we are trying to do in BRI, Belt and Road Initiative through CPEC, bringing in Central Asian countries who want to use Gwadar as the hub, then also bring in Iran and Afghanistan. So it's a plus for stability. It's a plus for development, Pakistan-China relations. In this context, Pakistan is very clear. As you know, we said no to America's invitation to join the so-called democracy summit because the intention was not democracy. The intention was some other agenda and a geopolitical agenda. And in any case, we felt we will not be part of any such moves which are directed against other countries, not about democracy. So Pakistan will manage to balance that relationship because we know how to preserve, promote, and protect our core interests. And our core interests are compatible with China. And let me be very clear and frank. Our relationship with the US is tactical. It's linked to a situation which was in the region. And when the situation changes, the relationship ceases to exist. In the Cold War days, it was about the Cold War situation against Soviet Union. Then it was the opening to China. Then it was the Afghan situation. Then it was the so-called war on terror. Once that situation changes, the US attitude changes. Unlike that, the Pakistan-China relations is more strategic, more resilient, more robust, and more consistent. And so that is why we are very clear on that. So our choice is clear, and we cannot be pressured when it comes to our core interests. President Ayub Khan in 1963, he was a military ruler. He decided to open up to China, despite the opposition of US and the Soviet Union. And we did that, and we did the same on a nuclear program, and we did the same on CPEC also. So we know how to balance our relationships, and we know how to protect our core interests, and we know our core interests lie in the region, and our Pakistan-China relations are strong, resilient, and resolute for the future. Thank you.
Madam Peng, would you like to comment? After,
I think Senator Mujahid has said very clearly and very included all the areas. I don't have, but I only have to say our bilateral friendship is a unique one. Will benefit our two countries and our two peoples, and will benefit for the whole peace, stability, development of the whole region. And I think it will also benefit the whole world. Thank you.
Agreed.
With that, ladies and gentlemen, we conclude this webinar, this conference on the 6th plenum of the 19th Central Committee. And we thank the great speakers, Madam Peng Shui, Senator Mujahid, Minister Fakhr Imam, Senator Sherry Rahman, and the colleagues at the Pakistan-China Institute who have made it possible, and all the participants who took time out to tune in and to participate and to listen, and also for those who commented and asked questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you very much. Thank you, Excellency Peng, and our best wishes to Ambassador Nonglong. Thank you so much for coming. Very kind of you. Bye-bye.